We'll be looking at synchronized in depth. So what do you mean by synchronized and why we use synchronized? Can you recollect some of the samples that you have taken in our last class? So let me just briefly explain synchronized again. Say you have an account object. This object was created using an account class. This object has got an account holder name, account holder number, and balance as 10,000. And I have two transactions. You can think of them as two threads. This is thread 1, this is thread 2. Both these things accessing my object. Say you call this object to be of Satish object. You give a name for this object, Satish object. So what thread 1 does, both these threads are going to access which function. Say this function is going to access and it's going to update the balance. Say thread 1 starts reads balance. So what is the balance here? 10,000, and it is performing balance minus 1,000. So balance will go to 9,000. While it is performing this, thread 2 kicks up and it also reached balance. So what is the balance? 10,000. And then it performs balance minus 1,000, that is 9,000. So while it is performing balance minus 1,000, this guy updates balance to be 9,000. So the balance gets updated for this object as 9,000. Whereas this guy now he updates balance as what? 9,000. So finally your balance will be updated as 9,000. But then how much we have withdrawn? We have withdrawn 2,000. So there was some issue. These are called memory consistency errors. And this happened because of thread interference. What do you mean by thread interference? Both these threads executing the same function in an interleaved fashion. I execute one step, you execute one step. And it happened because whatever updates that were happening to this balance was not available to transaction 2. Thread 2 was not aware of what updates were happening in thread 1. So that is the issue. And these are the problems: thread interference and memory inconsistency, or they call this memory consistency errors. How do you solve this? We know what the problem is. How it gets solved? So we looked at this keyword synchronized for solving this. We'll understand what is synchronized is in more depths. I've just got some animation for you to understand how this is getting prevented. So thread 1 comes in, it wants to access this object, right? What thread 1 should do first is, it should lock that object. So when a lock happens on an object, no other thread can go and access that object. So this is the first step. And once when it locks the object, it will go to this method withdraw. You call that a synchronized method, right? So to execute a synchronized method on an object, the very first step is the thread should lock that object. Internally that lock happens. So once when an object is locked, no one else can access the thread. So it start going and doing read balance. What is read balance? 10,000. So while it is performing this, there can be another thread, thread 2, trying to perform read balance. So when thread 2 comes in, this object is already locked. So thread 2 cannot access this object. So thread 2 is actually trying to execute the synchronized method. To run a synchronized method, you first need to lock the object. So if you don't have a lock on the object, Satish object here, you cannot go and run the method. So who is holding the lock? Thread 1 is holding the lock. So thread 2 cannot acquire the lock. It cannot enter into the synchronized method. So thread 2 waits, and what happens? Here you see thread 1 updates balance to 9,000. And then once when this method is done, thread 1 will release the locks. Thread 1 terminates, it releases the lock. So once when this termination lock is released, thread 2 is now free to access the lock. So thread 2 is given a green signal, thread 2 will go and lock it. So when thread 2 locks it, it can go and update the balance now. So what it will do, it will start executing, entering the synchronized block. It start executing read balance. What is the balance available? 9,000. 9,000 minus 1,000 is 8,000. Finally balance will be 8,000. So when you look at this synchronized method, Whenever a thread wants to enter a synchronized method, it needs a lock on the object for that particular method. I think synchronized was explained. Can we write this code again to understand synchronized sample program wherein you have an account class? Whatever we have seen now, can you just write code for that? Can you look at the code? Say you withdraw amount using two threads. Solve the issue using synchronized function. We did this in the last class. Just to recollect, can you perform that? Say we'll have this class account. We'll have only a balance to be the field. Other field, string holder, account holder, and number can be skipped for now. We'll have this parameterized constructor for our account. So this dot balance is equal to balance. Then we'll have this method. This is what public void withdraw. This is a withdraw method, and then it's going to get in some withdraw amount. Okay. What we are going to do in withdraw is this dot balance is equal to this dot balance minus withdraw amount. Just subtracts the balance with some withdraw amount. Let's have two methods. One is withdraw, another one is deposit. So let me create deposit here. Public void deposit and in deposit amount. So what we are going to do in deposit amount is we are going to do this dot balance is equal to this dot balance plus depo. So just a very simple piece of code. Okay. And we'll have synchronized for both our methods. We'll put a sysout message, maybe sysout. We'll say this is withdrawal, and we'll say this is just for our own output. Sysout, this is deposit. Okay. So we have two synchronized methods for a class account, and we'll create an object of this account type. So what is this object of this account type? We'll just go and create an object. So it is account. I'll create an object of type Satish is equal to new account. The balance be 20,000. So we have created an object. Now we should create two threads that will act on this object. As I told you, thread 1 and thread 2, right? So how will you create thread? Thread thr1 is equal to new thread, and then you'll have this runnable object. So what we are going to give in this run is, I want to withdraw maybe 10,000 rupees. So I'll take object dot withdraw. So this will go and withdraw 10,000 from my object Satish. Likewise, I'll have another thread. What is the another thread? Thread thr2 is equal to new thread. We'll have this new runnable. So, and here what we are going to have is, we are going to have Satish dot deposit. This will be depositing 5,000 rupees. So what we'll do now is, we'll go and start these two threads, thread 1 dot start and then thread 2 dot start. So both these threads will complete on the same object, and then we'll also join the results and print the final balance, thread 1 dot join. So this will terminate thread 1 here, Thread 2 join will terminate thread 2. It will ensure that thread 2 is terminated here. Finally, in my main thread, I will print the final balance. So this is Satish.balance. Okay. So now, what we have to understand is how the synchronized method works. So this thread starts, thread 1 dot start. So this will go and start Satish dot withdraw. So Satish dot withdraw 10,000. What it's going to do? First, it will go and acquire a lock on Satish object. Then it will come to this method. Then it will start subtracting that method. By this time, thread 2, if you start, say I also start thread 2, right? What thread 2 does? Satish dot deposit 5,000. So when I deposit 5,000, this is actually going to start this particular synchronized block deposit, but it needs a lock on which object? Satish object. So since Satish object lock is already acquired by this guy has to wait. Once when he withdraws, then this guy can acquire the lock and complete. So we have two threads. Either thread can start first. Say if this comes first with an higher priority, so this guy will acquire the lock on Satish object, deposit 5,000 rupees. Whereas this guy, when he starts, he should wait until this guy releases the lock. So you have many synchronized methods. If you're going to work on one object, only that method or that thread which acquires the lock on that object will be executing. All the other synchronized methods should be waiting. Sleep method. What is thread.sleep? This is a method from your thread class. And when I say thr1.sleep, so what it does is it just passes the execution of the thread. Thread is inside the synchronized block. When I say sleep, it'll just hold that lock on the object and sleep. It'll be passing that. So how long it should sleep? You can give some milliseconds, say 9,000 milliseconds. So 9 seconds, I want this thread to sleep. It will sleep, but it will still hold on to the lock on the object. So what is this sleep? Causes the current thread to suspend execution for a specified period. So if any other thread working on any other object for my account, say there is a Ramesh object, so any other thread is accessing Ramesh object, that will be given the processor time, whereas this object will still hold on to my lock on Satish and sleep. So that is the idea behind sleep. So we'll go and see how we call sleep. The important parameter we have to pass to sleep method is milliseconds. How many milliseconds? It also takes milliseconds, nanoseconds. We'll use this parameter milliseconds. We'll make a thread sleep. Say I'm getting into withdraw method. This is withdrawal, and then I want to put this thread to sleep. Pass its execution for 9 seconds. So what I can do? I can just say thread dot current thread. Thread dot current thread refers to the current thread that's executing inside the block dot sleep. Thread dot current thread dot sleep, and how many milliseconds? I'll give 9,000 milliseconds. That is 9 seconds. So it will enter here. It will sleep for 9 seconds, and it's holding the lock on the object Satish. So let's go and it'll ask us to add some throws declaration. That's fine. It's done. So some try catch. Eclipse suggests me to have some try catch because it throws some exception. So I'm just entering a block and waiting for 9 seconds and holding the lock on Satish object. So how many threads I have here? One thread for depositing on Satish, one thread for withdrawal from Satish. But when you enter withdrawal, you will pass for 9 seconds. So let's go and execute this and see what will happen. Let's go and execute this. See, this is withdrawal. Now it is waiting for 9 seconds. Though there is another thread, it is not able to execute until 9 seconds get over. You got this? So there are two threads. One is withdrawal, one is deposit. When I went into withdrawal, I was just passing it. I mean sleeping. So when I sleep, I'm not releasing the lock on the object. So that's why deposit is waiting. Still the lock is getting released. So let me run this again and show you. You see here, it enters into the withdrawal, but then it waits. The another thread is not able to run because it's not releasing any of the locks on the object Satish. The only thing we have to understand is when you put a thread to sleep, it will not release the locks on the object it is currently holding on to. Is that clear? So once when the 9 seconds get over, it releases the lock on object Satish, withdrawal is done, then my thread on deposit kickstarts, it deposits the amount, that is the final balance. So if for deposit also, if I put a sleep, I mean thread.sleep, what will happen? If I put a sleep, thread.sleep for deposit also, current thread.sleep, and I make it sleep for 9000 milliseconds. So what will happen? How will be your output now? So first it enters withdrawal, waits for 9 seconds, sleeps there. Next you are going to get, after 9 seconds, your deposit is going to run, and deposit is going to sleep inside that synchronized block for 9 seconds, and it will not release the lock on Satish for those 9 seconds. See, it's holding the lock for 9 seconds. Now main thread kicks up and it prints Satish.balance. So that is how it works. If you have many synchronized methods, only one synchronized method for an object will execute at any point in time. So this is the animation for thread.sleep. So I have an object, I have a withdrawal thread. So first it will lock the object. So it will start running my withdraw method here, as you're able to see this, right? And then it will read balance. Now I put this thread to sleep. So while it is sleeping, it's holding the lock on this object. So if any other thread 2 comes for deposit, it will not be able to enter this method because lock is not being released. So what it should do, it should wait until this method completes updates balance. So this will terminate and release the lock. So once when this terminates and releases the lock, my thread 2 can go and acquire the lock on this particular object. So once when it acquires that particular lock on the object, it can go and enter the synchronized method and start working on it. So we have one more thing called synchronized block. Say when you talk about a synchronized method, none of the thread can enter the entire method, right? A thread cannot enter the method itself. It's totally blocked. When you have a synchronized block, maybe a few lines of the code I'm going to block. The other lines will be available for parallel processing. So what we are going to do here is instead of having this particular thing, say inside my withdraw, I don't want all the lines to be blocked for all the threads. I just want maybe this block synchronized. I'm going to give synchronized here. So synchronized always takes an object lock. So this refers to the current object that is working on. When I say Satish.withdraw, this refers to Satish object. So you lock on this object and then you perform all these steps. So you can also make a block of statements to be synchronized within a big function. So other statements say sysout, I am not synchronized. So any thread can enter in, run this I am not synchronized. It doesn't need any lock on any object to run this particular method because withdraw is not synchronized anymore. So only when you come to this block, it needs a lock on the object Satish. So you can make only a few of these statements in your function to be following the synchronized concepts. See, there's one more thing that you have to understand here. I'm using a synchronized block here. I'm just blocking in a set of statements. So while I am entering into this method and blocking this, will any other synchronized methods here run? Say I am right now inside this, will any other synchronized methods run? You are going in, you're locking this and you're sleeping, thread.sleep. So it has locked the Satish object. So when I do Satish.deposit, obviously it is under lock. No other synchronized methods can run. though it's only part of the code function that is getting locked here, it's locking an object and it's sleeping. So you cannot execute any other synchronized methods. So to run a synchronized method, first the thread needs a lock on that particular object for that method. Okay. So you understood what is synchronized block? You can synchronize part of the method. There's one more thing called static synchronized block. See where we are having this synchronized now. Let me just remove this. Let's go back to our synchronized concept again to the method level so that it's easy for us. So let's have synchronized again here. Now, if I have static here, public static synchronized void, that's how it is. A static method is getting synchronized. Then how this is going to work? So I have two threads working on a static method. A static method is for a class and not for an object. Do you all recollect what a static method is? It's not for an object, it's for a class. So how this one works? So let me give a very simple example for static method and then I will move forward. So I'll have a very simple example here. I know this is partly confusing for you if I have such a big example. Say I have two threads with my run method here that you guys follow, right? Thread 1 and thread 2 with my run methods. And then I start thread 1 and thread 2, that is fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an class test. And inside my class test, I'm going to have this simple public static synchronized method void, and then say it's display some static method I have inside my class. Inside this, I'll have sysout statement. Say I am from synchronized static. So now, how will your threads go and access this synchronized block? I'll have another method which is not synchronized, that is, which is not static. Public synchronized, it's not static. Synchronized void, and then say display 1. And then here you say I am not static. Not static but synchronized. So one is a static method, it is available only for the class. One is a synchronized method that is not static, it's available for the object. So what we'll do now is we'll go and create an object for class test. How will you create an object for class test? It's new, so test t is equal to new test. So we created an object for class test. Say in my thread 1, I want to access the static method. So how will I invoke a static method? It's just class name, right? Test dot display. So one thread is accessing the static method, another thread is going to access the non-static method. So how will you access the non-static method? It is t dot display 1. So you have two threads, one on the static, another one on the non-static. So is there any, will it run parallelly or will it, what will happen? Say for instance, if I go and put a sleep here, thread dot current thread dot sleep, let's understand sleep also here. Sleep, so it's 9000 milliseconds. Okay, one method is going in and sleeping, that is the static method. Another method is not going to sleep. So when it is sleeping, will this execute? That is the question. So let me go and run this one. Let's see what happens. Oh, we have some errors here. So it's I am from synchronized static. I am not static but synchronized. So these two threads, see when this is in the waiting state, this is running. This is a class level lock and this is an object level lock. So that is the only difference. But these two threads can run simultaneously. This will not wait until this one exits the sleep state. But if I have all these two threads, both these threads accessing the static method. Say I'm going to have another thread here that will also access the static method. What is the method? Test.display. In both these threads, I want to access the static method. Now what will happen? Will they run parallelly or will it wait? See, I am from synchronized static. So it's waiting for 9 seconds because the next thread runs because it's a class level lock. So when you're having multiple static methods in your threads running at the same time, it's going to wait for a release of the locks. So you cannot run several static methods for one particular object in multiple threads. So two threads you have. From two threads, I'm going to call the synchronized static method. Obviously, only one is going to run. Till that exists, the other one will wait.